So this is asking what a mother-daughter dynamic might look like that is emotionally incestuous or a surrogate spouse type of dynamic if the daughter is an only child, and or as the kid gets older. What I have read on emotional incest unfortunately does not give same-sex examples. I kind of have pulled kind of general truths from what I have read and how this makes sense to me. So, the core of emotional incest is being really enmeshed with the child. So, there is a certain amount of privacy and independence and agency that should exist between a child and their mother, really always to some degree, because you're not the exact same person. But of course, it's normal for there to be fewer boundaries with a really young child. And children want and actually need more independence and agency and more separateness, more privacy the older they get. And for a parent who is getting a lot out of the enmeshed dynamic, that those increases in independence that kids naturally go through the older they get, maybe especially at kind of like the big leaps, like as kids kind of hit adolescence, there's kind of a big jump in independence that is wanted there, and even more so as they get into their late teens. Those can be really difficult periods for enmeshed parents. I think some of how this can look is kind of like helicopter parenting, in the sense of you are too involved with your kid, don't give them enough breathing room, want to be overly involved with them. But where, to me, in my mind, kind of typical helicopter parenting is driven by the parent's anxiety, and they are parenting in a way that is harmful to the child for the sake of trying to soothe their own anxiety. With enmeshment, it is more like, I don't feel comfortable not being one with you, rather than I don't feel safe with my kid, learning how to use a knife by themselves, or learning how to use scissors by themselves, or learning to walk to the store by themselves. It's, I need to be one with you in order to feel secure. Extreme version of helicopter parenting in a certain way. I also think it might skew more emotional. So I want to be one with you emotionally, but you might not see the same requirements of the other things I listed, like the safety-based things. They might be okay with their kid walking to the store, or learning how to drive, or learning how to cook and, build a fire, things like that. But they're not okay with them starting to date, or sharing as much of their inner emotional life with their parent as they become teens and become more naturally interested in their primary emotional support being their friends. Older kids in dynamics like this are likely to really feel the weight of the lack of independence that they are given. They are likely to kind of start to really feel smothered, whereas younger children might feel more special or privileged, or lucky to get special attention. Teenagers are more likely to feel smothered. Not that they wouldn't also still feel some specialness with this, but it's likely to be very much both in older kids. They are going to feel very overly responsible for their parents' emotions, whether that is keeping things smooth sailing to kind of regulate mom's emotions for her, or just feeling like they can't do anything that would upset mom or that mom would disagree with. It's just not an option to kind of think for themselves, to disagree, to go their own way. Sometimes with a child getting older, the amount of emotional incest can increase because they can start to feel like they can rely on you even more than they did when you were younger. So it may even reach a point where, rather than it feeling like a surrogate spouse, it might feel like a full role reversal, in that it can feel like mom wants you to be her parent rather than you be her equal. That can be things like managing her meds for her, checking in to see if she's okay, making meals for her, just really kind of doing some caretaking behaviors to her. Reliance on the kid for validation about what they want to do, or even expecting the kid to make the final say on certain things. As kids get older, you may start to see more overt guilt trips about independence that these kids are attempting to take. Phrases like, after all I've done for you. Or they might overtly say things that make it clear that they think this should be a 50-50 relationship. Like, I left Jeff for you and now you're gonna date Sarah and you know I don't like her. With dating specifically, there are kind of two ways that this goes from the examples that I saw in this book. More of the examples lended towards insecurity and jealousy and kind of territorialness, which might be pretty blatant, of things like, I don't want you to see that girl because you're going to forget about me, or you're giving her all of your attention and that's not fair to me. Or it can be more subtle. It can come out through being really negative, critical, judgmental of anybody and everybody that their kid tries to date. It's not things like, oh, I think that they're abusing you, or I have like legitimate concerns about your choice in partner because I really feel that they're not a safe or good partner for you, but is instead just going to nitpick them and find problems with people because they just don't want you to be with anybody. And that can be severe enough to include like starting drama, stirring the pot, triangulation, getting too involved, and kind of trying to get between you and the person you're dating. But the other way that it can go is some of these parents, because they are so enmeshed and they see their child as an extension of themselves, they can actually really enjoy and be excited by and want to live vicariously through their child who is dating. They may want to know every detail about every date you go on. They may be invasive with asking questions about, what base you're getting to or what type of intimacy you're experiencing. They may almost want to be part of your marriage. Healthy parents expect that as kids get older, start dating, get married, have kids, that their kids' primary focus becomes their partner and or their children, or even if they don't date or get married, just their own friends, their own job. They really create their own lives. Enmeshed parents will struggle with that because they want to remain the center of their kids' world. I know part of your question said if you're an only child, so that wouldn't be the case in this situation, but in other situations, sometimes one kid that had been the surrogate spouse leaves the home and gets married, and then a younger child becomes the new surrogate spouse. It gets passed down to a younger child. Something that I think is really critical to understand for people who grew up this way is that if the child who grew up this way doesn't learn to set hard boundaries with their parent who is this way, that will very likely become generational trauma. To break this generational cycle, you have to not allow your parent to remain number one in your life. You have to make your spouse and your children the number one priority in your life. If you don't do that and you keep mom or dad in the number one role, then you will not be as emotionally available to your new family as you should be. And that's what causes emotional incest to begin with, is when a partner within a marriage doesn't have enough emotional support, so then they seek it from the child. So how this one would be recreated, if grandma and mom are overly enmeshed, then in mom's marriage, her husband is going to be emotionally neglected. And then very likely one of the children are going to end up emotionally enmeshed with dad because mom isn't there to meet dad's emotional needs in the marriage. And based on like family systems theory, if there is an imbalance or a problem or an unmet need in a family, it doesn't matter where it is. If there's an imbalance, the system tries to correct itself. And so children will try to step up and meet adult needs wherever they're going unmet. So in that case, very likely a child would end up enmeshed with dad, and then that's your generational trauma cycle.